and welcome again to Workwise Business Insight. So today's episode will be spotlighting my co-host, Michelle Smith, Clarity and Beyond. So it's going to be a conversation. Michelle is going to tell us about what she does, why Clarity and Beyond. Yeah, Michelle, let's read from you.
Wow. Thank you for the opportunity to have a little spotlight. It feels quite strange actually to kind of be on the other side of the desk, as it were,
Of the
rather
desk.
than
Yeah.
being the person asking questions and delving a little bit deeper into what other people think.
Yeah. Yeah. So, are you ready to start?
I'm ready. Yeah, let's do
All
it.
right. Yeah, Michelle. Clarity and Beyond. Tell us more.
Okay, well, it's been a bit of a journey, I think. Um, and it's taken me quite a while to get here. I've been running my own businesses since 2013. Um, and before that, I was in HR. Reached a point in my life where I thought, oh gosh, I need to do something completely different. My husband and I started a property portfolio, which we've still got and we still run that. And long story short, I had another business during the last 10 years, which was a complete flop. And I got to a point where I was looking back over where I'd been and how I'd got to where I was and reevaluating what I wanted to do. Um, and I realised that people development was the thing that I'd always loved. And that's why I started to think, well, maybe coaching's the thing that I would like to do. And I'd had a coach myself and really benefited from the process of coaching and thought, you know what, the people development thing, helping people to realise their potential, that's really where I want to be. And then I started to think about my brand. And when I look back and thought, okay, I've got to a point now where I've got clarity and I want to move beyond where I am right now. And that's how Clarity and Beyond came about.
I love that. I love that.
And I would
I'm ready.
actually just give a shout out to Paul Hughes, who was absolutely amazing in helping me to actually visualize and make real the idea of Clarity and Beyond. So he did all my branding, my logo, set me up with my
Mm.
website. And Warren as well, Warren King, photographer, I should just give him a shout out as well because he actually helped me think about what the sort of people, what sort of image I wanted to convey to people of who I was and what I bring to help them in their business. So they were both pretty fundamental in helping me to kind of make Clarity and Beyond into what it is
It
now.
is. Yeah. That's good. Shout out for Hughes and Warren King, Greenwich Connects. Thank you for helping Michelle. Thank you. Wow, Michelle, 11 years ago. 1 month. 1 month did you start?
Um, I started, oh my goodness me, this is going back a long time actually, isn't it? And it's
Mm.
probably pretty much exactly that number of years because I seem to remember going to a workshop at Southeast Enterprise actually in the September.
Of
Um,
that year, 2023. Okay.
yeah. So again, another shout out there really because Southeast Enterprise have been pretty fundamental to how I've got to
Yeah.
where I am now, because all the support and the courses and the mentoring that they offer has been a big part of my journey.
That's good. Well done. I suppose in times of a lot of people that are actually running their own businesses now, and I think for me as well, in times of a lot of people will say, okay, this is what I was doing before. I just thought, you know what, let me turn my passion into business. And that's what you've done. You're a people person. HR, if you're not a people person, seriously, HR is not for you. I know that. I have to say that. And then in HR as well, we promote coaching and mentoring. So, and I think it's kind of following the same path of being a people person, you love people and all of that. So, and for senior managers, we recommend coaching or mentoring for them. And I think it's a big shift that you are doing in terms of going into the coaching. So, my question now is 11 years ago, from HR professional to now a coaching professional. So, what has been the difference in terms of kind of relating the HR to being a coach or coaching um, people?
I think the 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 big shift actually for me has been the whole piece around mindset, and how our minds work. Um, and so bringing all that sort of HR experience, the people experience, the sort of the communication, understanding, that we don't all see the world in the same way. In fact, no two
Mm-hmm,
people ever see the same situation in exactly the same
mm-hmm,
way. And being able to relate that to how our minds work, has been the thing that's the passion piece for me. That's been the thing. That was the stepping stone that really sort of brought me from the sort of people development to the okay, how do we unlock potential in a slightly different way.
mm-hmm,
And that came about because I became an NLP Master Practitioner and Hypnotherapist.
mm-hmm.
So I'm
Wow.
working now not just with that, the sort of leadership and management kind of coaching. I'm also looking at how we can really move ourselves forward when we look and think about things in a
Mm-hmm,
slightly different way.
mm-hmm. Wow. That is really interesting in terms of that. I think also you've talked about the your experience relating the HR to and the people person into the HR into their coaching, then relating the communication aspect of it and to kind of help people to kind of change their mind around that. What would you advise a company actually struggling in terms of leadership management? Would you recommend coaching?
I absolutely would, without a shadow of a doubt. But I think for some, particularly smaller organisations, that might feel like a huge shift in culture. It might feel like a big outlay, a big investment, um, and they may not feel ready for that.
Mhm,
Um, Absolutely, it will pay dividends in the long run. There's no way that I'm going to say that it won't. But there are things that you
mhm,
can do as a starting point, and those are around training really, and
mhm,
sort of working with individuals and teams to kind of get people to sort of take a step out of where they are right now and look at situations more objectively. So I do quite a lot in terms of workshops, really small, 2 hour workshops around self leadership, I think is probably the best way for me to describe
mhm,
it. So, to give you an idea, in those workshops, I will help people to see how they show up can have an impact on the results that they get.
Mm-hmm.
So how they're thinking, how they're speaking, how they're coming across, but also the kind of things that they say to themselves that can have a
Mm-hmm.
negative impact on
But yeah,
them, but also on their teams.
yeah,
Um, so, yes, absolutely. Leadership and management coaching, if you want your teams to really excel at what they do, then I'm going to recommend it any day of the week. But if that's just not where you are right
yeah,
now, then start small and get your teams to kind of start looking and thinking differently.
yeah, yeah. That is good. I asked that question because I ran a workshop last week, and during that, it was just around the new employment legislation, and some of the attendees actually they said in their companies the leaders the support in terms of training and coaching and mentoring. But however, they themselves they don't do all of that. They don't believe in that, so they don't do coaching and all of that. So in terms of CPD for them, it's no. So you can't know everything. And what you said, how you show up really matters because what you learned 2 years ago, even 6 months ago, you'll be surprised that it's changed, to be honest with you. And I think as well, it helps them to develop their skills. So
Yeah,
it is important. Coaching or mentoring, from what you're saying, is not just for anybody, it's for leadership as well. If they
yeah.
want their team to thrive, let me use that word, to thrive. So they too themselves, they need coaching.
And I mean, coaching falls into so many different sort of niches, I suppose. So you can have a life coach who helps people generally to kind of
Hmm.
navigate through some of the challenges that they find themselves in
Hmm.
life in general. Career
Yeah,
coaching,
yeah.
leadership and management coaching. But I guess the principles are always pretty much rooted in the same sort of thing. It is about that how we think, how we feel, how we
Hmm.
act, and the results that we get, and finding how, if we're not getting the results that we want, no
Hmm.
matter whether that's leadership and management or life, what can we change? And
Hmm.
sometimes when we're too close to something, it can feel as though a challenge is insurmountable. But actually,
Yeah.
we've all got the resources to deal with any challenge. We
Hmm.
just sometimes we need a little bit of objective help to kind of see that. Um, and actually, managers who find themselves in a situation where they're leading a team and don't feel that they have the skills or the qualifications to do that. They do. It's
Of
just
course.
having somebody help them to realise that
Yeah.
and fulfil that potential, and that's really where coaching comes into its own.
Yeah.
And I think very often new managers, particularly, can find it really daunting to have what I would say are just conversations. Even when you're dealing with somebody who's persistently late and you need to address that, you're just having a conversation,
Yeah.
and how you show up in that conversation will dictate the results that you get
At the end,
very
it's very
often.
important. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and the thing is, over our lives, we develop patterns, subconscious patterns, where when a particular situation arises, we automatically default to dealing with it in exactly the same way. And there's that
It's
saying,
normal.
isn't there? If
Yeah.
you're doing the same thing in the same way as you've always done and you're getting the same results, well,
Time to
something needs to
change. Change.
change. But
Yeah.
our subconscious tends to keep us trapped in the old ways. And just being able to kind of take that step back and look at it differently and allow a new response in any given situation where you will
Hmm.
get a different result, a more positive result. That's kind of what I'm helping people to do.
That is good. That is good. So what I'm getting now is it helps to identify growth, right? Develop new skills
Yeah,
and set goals.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. So earlier on, you mentioned in terms of, I know I asked a question around leadership coaching anyway. So in terms of all of that, and that actually was what led us into this conversation. And you then mentioned about career coaching as well.
Mm.
So career coaching, what are the sort of things that you actually talk about, thinking about how you've actually transferred your experience from HR professional to into this coaching? So, would you recommend career coaching to aspiring leaders, and what are the things that you actually covered in that
Okay.
conversation?
I actually don't do career coaching. I
Okay.
think coaching works really, really well for somebody who's having, let's call it a career crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and actually, when I think back to the point that I left HR, that's probably where I was, and having the opportunity to sit down with somebody and really unpack that and look at it. Um, would I have stayed in HR? I'm not sure that I would have, but I would have benefited from a much clearer picture of where I was going next had
Mm,
I have spoken to somebody.
mm,
Um, Now, we do in Greenwich, we have a number of great career coaches actually. There's Sanjukta, and there is Nyla,
yeah.
whose details I'll share actually because they can go in the description. So if somebody was specifically wanting a career coach, I would say find a career coach, somebody who really
Mm-hmm.
specializes in that,
Mm-hmm.
and have a chat with them, because
Mm-hmm.
this is probably a good point to sort of say that when you're working with a coach, the chemistry's got to be right because
Of course.
you're going to be having some difficult conversations, and you want to feel at ease to be able to explore some of the stuff that's likely to
Mm-hmm.
come up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I say, if it's career, if somebody's in a job and they're wanting to look at where they go next in their career, somebody like Sanjukta or Nyla is going to be
Mm-hmm.
perfectly placed to talk about those issues specifically with
Those
you.
issues. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for going there. And you mentioned chemistry and coaching. I was going to come there as well. It was one of the things I was going to ask you. But coming back into the coaching itself, so thank you, Michelle, for sharing that. So we've heard viewers, we've heard about people that actually they do career coaching. But going back to leadership coaching, in terms of what you deliver, obviously, if a leader, if they have a coach, some of the things they will kind of is to better them to understand how to make their team thrive, isn't it? So one of the things that, in the course of having that conversation with their coach is
Mm,
about, in terms of what am I doing? What does good look
mm,
like? What am I doing right? What are the things that I need to improve on? And that is what will transfer into them managing their team. And I suppose in terms of having the performance conversation with their team, which I
yeah,
will call performance coaching, because they've had
yeah,
coaching with you for a number of however long that you need to spend with them. So we expect that conversation to transfer back into workplaces, whatever people they are managing.
yeah,
So in terms of having conversation, discussing objectives and everything. So I
mm,
would just say they too, they will be having performance coaching with their staff.
yeah,
So, and one of the things that I think they should be having with their staff is around this career coaching, to be honest with you,
yeah,
in terms of, okay, probably you are actually high achiever staff. We need
mm,
to look at the next steps for you.
yeah,
What are the next steps?
yeah,
So then it would then be up to the individual because somebody has already identified
yeah,
that thing from them,
yeah,
where they should be. It is up to that individual to now start thinking, I think I'm ready for a mentor or a coach now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they can then start having conversation with Nila or Sanjata or whoever they have, or they might have somebody within their organization that they
Yeah.
might want to start with anyway. So, but that is why I say that leadership coaching is very important in
Yeah.
terms of for leaders as well, so that you'll be able to support their staff around performance coaching, even career coaching,
Yeah.
until that individual is ready to then branch out and then go private. So
It,
that is
it,
just from what you've just said now, that is the only thing I can.
it, you raise a really good point actually, because it's kind of a double-edged sword really, because if I think back in my own experience before I left HR, I my HR director sat me down. I was an HR manager, and he said to me, right, you need to start planning for how you're going to get from HR manager to HR director and start preparing for that. And that was probably the conversation that made me go, that's not what I want. That is absolutely not what I want to do. And when I say it's a double edged sword, you can, when you start to unpack some of this stuff, there's potentially a risk that you are going to find people rethinking where they want to be, what they want
Mm-hmm,
to do. And some organisations might find that as a little bit of a threat rather than an opportunity,
mm-hmm,
because what they want to do is keep hold of their talent. Um, and yet, by opening up the conversation, you might actually be creating a situation where somebody's thinking, do you know what? I've had the chance now to have this conversation and rethink where I want to go next,
mm-hmm,
and I'm going to move on. But what I would say in that situation is actually you want people to be in the right place for your organization, and
mm-hmm.
actually, sending somebody on their way with the best of support and
Skills.
gratitude for what they've
Mm-hmm.
brought to your organization as they go off into the sunset to do something new. That's a lovely thing.
It
if
is.
you're grateful for everything that they've brought to your organization, and you know that it's time for them to go, then that leaves an opportunity for somebody else to come up
Yes.
through
Yeah.
through the organization anyway. These things
Yeah.
will happen.
Yeah.
We're, as human beings, we want to fulfill our own values, we want to achieve our own dreams, and sometimes that doesn't involve our business, our organization.
Yeah.
And that's life.
It is life. It is life. But honestly, I love what your manager did that time because what he was trying to do, probably you might not understand it then. Because some people think, oh, are you trying to ship me out? Because I think he or she was trying to create a high performance culture, and then think Michelle is actually a high performer. What else could I do to support? So
Yeah.
that is why I was talking. That for me, that is a
Yeah.
career coaching, and I think is what was good. It probably did the how that I presented it that actually kind of put you off in terms of that.
Yeah.
It
I
could be
think
the how. So.
Yeah, and I think actually, had it have been more of a conversation about where do you see yourself in 5 years, rather than an assumption that that's where I would
She's
be,
ready. Yeah,
and that is coaching. He didn't
yeah,
coach me. He
yeah,
presented something to me with the expectation that that's where I would go. But coaching is about questions,
yeah.
exploration,
Mm-hmm.
dialogue, um, and that appreciation of the fact that we don't all see the world in the same way.
Yeah,
That is ultimately the thing that I think we all forget sometimes.
yeah, yeah,
Particularly when we're running our businesses and we think we know what we want, we know what we want people to do for us, but if they don't want that, then that's not been
yeah.
beneficial to the organization in the long term.
It's
So
not. It's not. Yeah. And I think as organization, in terms of all these things that you just mentioned, like I said, is actually the what was okay, trying to kind of create a high performance culture, but it
Yeah,
was the how that actually wasn't really good in time. Like you
yeah,
said, coaching is dialogue, is about open questions and let that individual kind of come to their own solution because what
yes,
your manager did was jumping into solution for you and giving you that
yes,
solution.
yeah,
So yeah, so, and then thinking, is Michelle really confident enough to kind of come out of this? And I think that is what the organization should be thinking in terms of coaching for all their staff as well. But especially
yeah,
aspiring leaders, high performance,
yeah,
high performance, thinking, okay, I think this individual is ready. What can I do to support them? Maybe you will have
absolutely.
started your coaching long time ago in terms of, okay, like you said, where do you see yourself in in the
Yeah,
next 5 years? And you could have come back and said, actually, this is what I'm thinking. Then the next step will be, what can we do to support you to get there?
yeah,
So it might be totally different thing.
yeah.
So yeah, yeah, it's a great thing you're doing. And then thank you for sharing that. Coming back to the chemistry, it was one of the things I was going to talk in terms of how do you thinking about because obviously even mentoring as well, you have to be the right fit for them. They have to be
You
the right
do.
fit for you. And
Mm-mm.
that chemistry must be right. It's just like in going on, I always explain coaching and mentoring to people is like going on a first date. You don't know if you're going to be compatible. So am I compatible with my coach? Am I not?
Absolutely.
So how do you assess that chemistry, Michelle?
Okay. Well, I mean, I predominantly work with women over 40 who run their own businesses. So I kind of that's sort of where I my starting point is. I mean, that's not to say that I don't work with men or women under 40 or anybody that, particularly if they're running their own business, if they feel stuck and they just can't work out why, then, if I can help them, I will. Um, but as a sort of a starting point, I say women over 40, because at that point in life, there are a lot of challenges, perimenopause, menopause, carer responsibilities, reaching that point where you think, oh gosh, there's maybe more to life. What am I going to do next? I'm going to start a business. I'm now feeling stuck. Um, but regardless of that, you're right. The chemistry thing is really, really important. So even if it's a woman over 40 that approaches me and says, I'm interested in what you do and how you might be able to help me, I would say to them, we need to chat. We need to understand whether or not we're the right fit for each other because
Mm-hmm.
coaching is, as I mentioned before, it's a vulnerable place, and
Yes.
particularly for the person who's being coached, they need to feel safe. They need
Mm-hmm.
to be know that they're being seen, that they're being heard, and that they're being understood.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're going to be in a room with me, be it a Zoom room or in person, sharing what's going on and potentially being quite vulnerable, then they need to feel as though they can trust me. Um, and actually, I like to know that the people that I'm working with are ready for coaching. I think in the UK, there's still maybe a little bit of misunderstanding about what coaching is. And also, I think over in America, it's almost like a mainstream thing. So people tend to understand better over there what coaching is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and to be ready for coaching, you kind of have to be ready to let go of some of those old patterns and to start being really personally responsible for yourself and the way you think and the way that you act. And if somebody comes to me and I don't think that they're in that place yet, then coaching isn't going to work, and I couldn't possibly take their money from them if I know that they're not likely to go away and do the work that they need to do to move forward. So from my point of view, it needs to be that they're ready. And
Yeah.
from their point of view, they need to know that they can trust me and that they can open up to me.
Thank you. Love that. So what I'm getting is chemistry is about getting to know each other. So that's the first meeting, and then setting boundaries. That let me just, if
Yeah,
you allow me to use that word, you set boundaries in terms of let them know this is what is going to be involved,
yeah,
and all of that. Then it's up to them to decide. And like you said, so it depends on whether they are ready to unlearn
yeah, yeah, and
previous
take
mindset,
action.
actions. Yeah. Life is complicated, even coaching is complicated. No, and there's no self-help book in the world, can understand the complexity of everybody's situation. But if you then take that bold step to think, you know what, I think I need a coach, then you should be ready to do the work
Yeah,
to unlearn.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's transformational when you start to
yeah,
really open up to changing the way that you think, and it can the shifts that you can get just through some really carefully asked questions are amazing
yeah,
because
yeah,
we're very well, we're rarely offered the space to just sit and really think about a question that when we suddenly realize, in trying to find the answer to that question, it opens up a whole sequence of, I've not thought about that before, or, now I can see, what the self sabotaging patterns, why
mm-hmm,
they're there. Um, and what I would say about that is that we do things from a place, we don't do anything from a place of being faulty or um, wrong. We do things because our mind is predominantly set up in a way to protect us and keep us safe.
yeah,
That's what it boils down to. And just sometimes those mechanisms that our mind presents us with don't serve us and they hold us
they do.
back. And it's just,
Yeah,
okay, how
they
do
do.
we unlock that and make things more more constructive to our success?
Amazing, seriously. And I think from everything you said, clarity and beyond, it really fits what you do because you help people to handpick, what they're going through, help them to realize what's holding them back and uncover the opportunities, in their future, in terms of what they want to do. So roughly, in the process of doing all of these things, roughly, how long does it take for you to coach someone?
Well, I liked the phrase that you've used there, uncover, because actually, I would often liken us as human beings to, it's like having an onion. You peel one layer of an onion and you've got the new skin underneath, and you're good to go.
Another layers.
But then you'll hit another block,
You
and
have a rotten one underneath, rotten layers underneath.
absolutely. So it as I say, we're human. That's part and parcel of who we are. There's always something that you'll uncover at some point. Um, and that's not to say that you should be working with a coach forever, because I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that that's the right approach. I like to meet people where they are now, and if they some people might just need a one off, a little bit of a. There's one issue that I'm struggling with right now, and that's, I don't know. I work with a lady who had a fear of networking, and one session with her was enough to get her to the point where she was able to go out and go networking.
That's that's good.
If, as a business owner, you've got goals and ambitions and you want to work on a whole package of things, then that might be 6 months. You
Okay.
know, it
Thank
might be a
you.
package of 6 months where we identify the things that that individual wants to work on, and we pull together a strategy of how we're going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it might be that, um, I mean, I run a community as well. So, a community of women, a membership
Mm-hmm.
where every week we come together and we do 2 hours of co working.
Wow.
But there's also the opportunity to get coaching. So it's all done on
Private,
Zoom.
they can do individual. Okay.
Yeah, so if somebody's really stuck in one of our sessions on a Thursday morning and they think I can't, I'm procrastinating over this big task that I need to do, then we can go into a breakout room and do a bit of coaching. And that's ongoing. You know, that's not intensive coaching. That's just a
Okay.
community of like-minded women and the opportunity to get a little bit of coaching as and when.
Okay.
Um, if somebody is struggling with quite a deep seated um, issue on anxiety or something specific like that, then it could be 3 sessions of hypnotherapy or NLP. So I've given you quite a long winded answer there,
Mm-hmm.
encompassing quite a lot of what I do. But I guess the real answer is it depends on the individual and what
Individuals.
they
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't work long term with somebody, because if I've got them to a point and they're ready to move forward and they maybe uncover a block of a different kind, then it might be that
Which is
they're
good.
better suited to find a coach who's, expert in
Ongoing.
that field.
Yeah.
So case by case, individual by individual, depending on what they need.
Thank you. That is really good. Thank you. It's good to know. Depending on the individual. So what I'm getting now is it depends. That is why the first meeting is very important. And
Yeah,
that is why that individual needs to be open when you have your first meeting. So that helps you to kind of give a time bound in terms of, okay, this is what the timeline is gonna be and
yeah,
all of that. I really
yeah.
love that. So Michelle, just to thank you so much for sharing this and what you do, Clarity and Beyond. I love that name, and it really makes sense now. And just to wrap up, are there other things that you think you just want to kind of add to this conversation? Just to, yeah, how can people find you, our viewers, where can they find you? Yeah,
Okay, well, I have a website, and that's clarityandbeyond.co.uk. So they can find me on there. And I'm Michelle Smith, Clarity and Beyond on LinkedIn. That's the main social channel that I have, although I do also, relatively new, have a YouTube channel, which is Clarity and Beyond. And on the YouTube channel, I'm sharing some useful sort of mindset hacks, some ideas, some thoughts about, how you can make small changes basically and get a different sort of result. So, yeah, they're the main places you can find me.
yeah. Thank you, Michelle. For our viewers, we're going to drop the Michelle's details in the blog as well. So thank you, Michelle Smith, Clarity and Beyond. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
sharing your
Roslyn.
wonderful. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Bye. That was really good.
Oh, thank you for asking such insightful
Thank you.
questions.
Thank you.
It's
Interesting.
it's so lovely because